Hey, I'm Matthew Giorgio. I want to give you some tips on how to do good note-taking. Note-taking is a really important skill, and we're not really taught it growing up, and we're kind of left on our own to figure it out, and everybody kind of creates their own techniques, and I'm sure many of them are not very efficient. In fact, I remember when I was in college studying engineering, a few classes I actually did go to, I would see all my classmates furiously writing down everything the instructor was saying. And I could tell that the instructor was just teaching right out of the textbook. So what I did is I figured, well, if you're furiously writing down everything the instructor's saying, you're not actually listening or paying attention to understand what they're saying. So what I did is I just took my textbook and a highlighter, and I would just highlight everything that they covered. So that way I could pay attention and actually identify what was important. But school is another thing. I don't want to get into this school today. But I want to give you some strategies on how to do good note-taking. And so I took my note-taking, changed from going to school to then becoming an engineer at a large tech company, at IBM in fact, and then I left IBM to start my own business, and then I would have to teach some of my newer employees who didn't have this particular experience on how to do it, and lots of meetings with people around the world and clients and teammates and partners and so on. So I came up with a system of note-taking that I find is very efficient, and I do teach it to my newer employees when they join us. In fact, we print our own books, our own book covers, and at the bottom of the book covers we have our icons and the basic strategy that we use for our note-taking as a reference. And I'm going to show you that here in hopes that it might help you as well. Okay, so here's our notebook. Let's open her up. We'll find a blank page here. And I'm going to use a Sharpie so you can see this better. So the main strategy is not to necessarily write everything somebody's saying. You're not taking minutes. If you want to take minutes, you're better off recording the meeting rather than trying to write everything down, because you're going to miss out on some important things. So we want to think about what are people saying that are important. Now, what are the most important things? The most important things are action items. Things that you're supposed to do, or somebody on your team is supposed to do, or your client is supposed to do. So action items are the most important things that you have to mark down in meetings. And then, of course, while you're getting to the action item, you're having discussions with important conclusions. So you want to write down those conclusions, whatever they are, abbreviate them. You want to do it as quickly as possible, but you also want to make sure you can remember it later. When you do write it down. So you're writing down conclusions, you're writing down key points. So if you do have a conclusion and there's 2 reasons why you came to those conclusions, jot down those reasons as well. So while you're taking the notes, and here's the strategy that we use for the icons. I mentioned we had some icons at the bottom here. Is if you're writing something and it's an action item, a to-do, we put a box next to it, just like that. In the left margin or wherever you have it. Simple as that, a little box. And that means that's a to-do item. If it's a specific type of to, like a call, we might use a letter C. If it's next to the action item. If it's a meeting over here, we've taken some notes about the next meeting, we'll use a letter M. Maybe you might have to do some internet work or research or whatever, you might use an I. You can use your own icons and abbreviations here, whatever works best for you. We have to maybe send an email to somebody. We'll use an E. Email me that document. Okay, there's an E. And now, when we complete a to-do, an action item, we simply put a mark through it. So if it's a checkbox, we can just X it out as if that to-do was completed, or you can use a little check mark. If it's one of these other ones, you can put a line through it. Sometimes I'll use a circle and a line through it. And that quickly allows you to identify that you've completed all of your tasks and action items from that particular meeting or whatever notes you were taking. Now, here's the other thing we do as well, is as we complete parts of our notes, so, as I've completed these action items, or maybe I have some notes here that get transferred to a project management system or some other system, or they're assigned to someone else, what I do is I actually run a line down the middle of the page to identify everything that's been handled. So if everything here has been completed and handled, passed off, whatever, I'll put a line down the page, and maybe there's some things down here that haven't been. And then maybe at the bottom there are some things that have. I will complete the line down the bottom, but see now there's no line here. And what that does is allows me to flip through my notes I can flip through my notes very quickly and see anything that's still outstanding. So very easy, quick reference. You can see anything that's outstanding. Plus, if you need to go back and look at any history, you've got your keynotes that you need. It's as simple as that. A few little icons that identify key points and action items, lines when things are completed. Oh, and there's one final thing, is we use an exclamation point, something like this, to identify priority items. So if anything becomes priority, or we know it's a priority, we'll put a big exclamation mark in the margin to tell us that that's a priority item. You know, you could use different colors if you had a couple of different color pens, but it's a very simple way, at a glance, you could see all the things that are important. And that's it. That's a simple note-taking strategy. I hope you might find it helpful. I'm Matthew Giorgio. See ya. Thumbs up.